Hey, what is up, disc golfers? Today on Iceberg TV, I want to give you guys my review of the Streamline Echo. The Echo is one of those discs where I think a lot of people were on the fence when it came to buying one because it was so similar to the Hex, and all the MVP Axiom Streamline fans have already owned a Hex. So I want to put this video out today to let you guys know if you should get the Echo or not. And when it comes to the profile is fairly flat, fairly high parting line, not super deep. It's about a 5 speed with a 5 glide, a -1 or 1.5 turn, and a 1 fade. And it does fly fairly true to the flight numbers. For the faster arm speed players, it's going to get a little bit more turn in the mid-flight, and for the slower arm speed players, it's going to fade out much sooner and be a really great disc to hold your hyzer lines. So as far as the flight and the flight numbers and how it feels in comparison to those numbers, everything seems to check out. Everything's pretty accurate, which is a great start from Streamline discs. It's always nice when a company has accurate flight numbers. Now, as far as the feel of the plastic goes, this can be hit or miss for a lot of people. A lot of people don't like gummy discs, and this isn't insanely gummy. It's not super hot right now. I'd say it's somewhere in the 70s, and this thing is still very gummy. And when I let my friends throw this disc, especially the power throwers and the bigger arm players, they didn't love how gummy it was in the hand. But for me, I actually really like the feeling of gummy discs. It feels really great for my pinch grip. Now, one of the biggest questions with the Echo is, isn't it basically the same thing as the Hex? And I'm going to go ahead and be honest with you guys and say it pretty much is the same thing as the Hex, except it does not have the Overmold and the gyro technology. And how does this affect the flight? To be perfectly honest, it doesn't. But where this disc comes in is if you do not like Overmold technology, but you want that reliably stable but straight mid-range, you don't like the Overmold so you don't have a Hex, this is going to be a really awesome option for you to have something that's going to be nice and straight. You get that nice, reliable, straight but stable flight of a Hex without having to worry about an Overmold. And I know there's a lot of you guys that don't like Overmold discs, and I totally understand why. They feel quite a bit different than non-Overmold discs. So I totally understand, having that debate with yourself. So we'll give these guys a few throws so you can see how this Echo actually compares to the Hex. Obviously, big shout out to OTB. They sent me both these discs. So we'll go with the Echo first, and then we'll go with the Hex. You can see I put it on a touch of Annie. It held the Annie the whole way and still wanted to flex out at the end. So having that little bit of turn, but definitely having that little bit of fade at the end. And we'll try to throw the Hex on a similar line. You can see holding that line, a little bit of turn and a little bit of fade. So both discs having an extremely consistent flight in comparison to one another, and it's going to be solely based on the feel as to which one is actually going to be better for your game. Now, I will say, when it comes to the forehand throws, I find that discs that are a little bit more stiff tend to handle off-axis torque quite a bit better than the softer counterparts. So if you're a forehand dominant player, I would definitely advise going with the Hex instead in a more stiff or firm plastic, because you're going to get a little bit more reliable stability and a little bit more off-axis torque resistance. But if you're, a solid player with a smooth game and good form, you're pretty much going to get the same flight out of each disc. So if you don't really care about the stiffness or the softest of the discs, you just get whatever one you think looks cooler. And we got both discs here landing just short of the green in basically the same spot, so carrying very similar distance on a very similar line. So just to compare the stiffness for you guys, this Hex doesn't really want to bend much and it really wants to hold its shape. But this Echo, much more gummy, much easier to bend. So again, if you like softer plastic, you like that kind of grippier, tackier feel, you're really going to like the feel of this guy. You can really sink your fingers into it, especially if you're a player who enjoys using a pinch grip like myself. And again, the Hex, not nearly as bendy, much more stiff, and the feel in the hand is basically the same. So it just comes down to what your plastic preferences are. We'll give them another throw or two, and then we'll close out the video. So we'll go Echo first. Obviously, both discs having great glide. So good straight flight, reliable stability, flying extremely true to the flight numbers. Got over on that one a little bit more, but still having that stability to start fighting out at the end of the flight. There are just so many good mid-ranges on the market right now. I currently am bagging the Meteor, but if I was to lose my Meteor, these would fly very similar to it. My Meteor is probably a touch more flippy, but as far as the flight goes, as these would continue to beat in, they would fly exactly like my Meteor. What I like about mid-ranges is they're going to definitely get a bit more distance than your putters. They also have a little bit more torque resistance, a little bit more reliable flight, especially if you have any rounding or any mistakes in your form, posture, and technique. So I'm a big advocate of throwing mid-ranges, and I know a lot of disc golf YouTubers are reviewing a ton of mids right now, which is really interesting because a lot of pros don't even throw mid-ranges. I know there was a few years where even Ezra Aderhold wasn't even bagging a mid-range. So I think one major reason of that, though, is because a lot of the top pros are able to push their putters out to 300 and 400 feet. Once you have a disc that you can throw that far and that straight, you really don't need a mid-range, because when you need, 450 or 500 or more and you have that level of power, you're going to be disking up to a fairway driver or a control driver that 7 to 9, maybe even 10 speed slot. But I think for your non-touring pros, amateur players, amateur YouTubers, the mid-range is probably my favorite slot, and I've got between 5 and 7 mids in my bag at any given time. And if you're still watching, make sure you like the video, guys. We got to keep liking the videos. It really helps the channel out. We'll do one more throw each, and then we'll close it up. So holding that little bit of turn and still fading at the end. Extremely consistent flight. I can't stress that enough. Both of these discs have a super consistent flight, super reliable. I'm throwing these very flat, maybe even slight ante, and they're holding that little bit of turn and a little bit of fade, just like they're supposed to. So I can't give a bad review to a disc that flies exactly how it's advertised to fly. I personally like that softer plastic of the Echo, and as far as especially the backhand throws, I would definitely prefer to bag that instead of the hex. So we'll do one more hex throw. Give it a little more height so you can really see it turn. Basically having the exact same flight as the Streamline Echo. So anyways, just to wrap things up, both discs basically fly the same. I don't have crazy arm speed, but if you have high arm speed, both discs are going to hold a lot more turn. And if you have lower arm speed, it's going to make even less of a difference because both discs are just going to stay on hyzer. I find that hexes, especially the new hexes, are a lot more stable than the original ones were. And I think the original pre-Lizotte hexes had that really nice, like, late flipping, holding and hyzer type shot shaping abilities. And I just feel like the new hexes don't necessarily have that exact same shot shaping ability. And if I had to nitpick, I would say the Echo goes a very slight touch farther. And that's because I think the softer plastic makes the disc a hair less stable and a hair more glidey. But anyway, guys, with all that being said, comment your favorite mid-range down below so I know you watched all the way to the end of the video. Please hit the like button. It really helps the channel. It doesn't cost you anything, and it takes 1 second. So hit the thumbs up button. You guys are watching Iceberg TV. Thank you so much for watching my channel. Shout out to OTB Discs, and take care.